The Super Speedway Podcast is a Dream Bigger media production. For news, photos, show notes, and information about advertising on the podcast, visit www.thesuperspeedway.com.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Super Speedway.
It was so free, I couldn't do anything about it.
I noticed messed up, but you gotta try here.
It doesn't feel right.
I would imagine.
Shaking really bad in the rear end.
Need about 4 seconds in order to make minimum, if you can do it, Natalie.
Well, last time I tried to push really hard, I wrecked off the shoe.
Info, I know, I'm just feeding info here.
Welcome to episode 107 of the Super Speedway Podcast, recorded Wednesday, May 22nd, 2019. I'm your host, Eric Young, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, James Cush. James, Natalie Decker makes her first appearance on the podcast.
I was going to say, is that the infamous Natalie Decker?
That is Natalie Decker, who had a terrible night on Friday night at Charlotte in the Truck Series race. So,
Oh my gosh.
I will admit, I did the thing that I don't normally do, and I was late getting home, so the truck race was recorded, of course, because I had Tri-City Friday night, so I was working super late. Came home, turned the truck race on, watched the first couple laps. It's like, Kyle Busch is in this one. I'm just going to skip to the highlights and see what happened. And sure enough, Kyle Busch won it. And I don't know how many times Natalie Decker hit the wall, but it was a lot based on the highlights. So had a frustrating night. And her, I don't want to pick on her because she's young and whatever, but her age is definitely showing on the radio on Friday night.
Yeah. She's
Poor
getting
kid.
Kinda,
I want her to do well, but
she's getting rushed into it a little bit.
I think she is. I definitely agree with that. I think she definitely is. And I hope they don't do the same thing to Haley Deegan, because
Yes.
I think, no offense to Natalie, I think Haley's probably got a bigger chance.
She's got a better resume at this point.
Yeah, and I don't want to see her struggle as well because she gets rushed into it, because the whole got to be the first woman that is successful in one of these series. And okay, well, you still got to go through the ranks,
Of all the audio clips you could have pulled for this week's version of the podcast, I really didn't expect you to go there.
I told you. I've told you before the podcast.
You're trying to keep me on my toes.
You weren't going to know where it was coming from. Well, I will admit I was able to get clean audio from the radio of Natalie Decker's truck. Somebody posted something on YouTube, so that made it a little easier. It's hard to get driver audio that's clean, because usually you get it during like Race Hub or whatever. And for the intro, I wanted to play over the music. I've debated like just setting up the recording and just recording a channel or two during the weekend, but then to go through and find the clip, these people that do this are amazing, and I don't have that skill.
If you wanted to do a workaround, you could just get one long bleep and say it was Kyle Busch.
Yeah.
I mean, that would suffice, and we could just fool people every week.
Right.
Kyle Busch, Kyle Busch on the radio again. Bleep.
Right. Well, let's get to that. Let's start first. It was the All-Star race weekend at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Kyle Larson gets in on the open win and wins the race. Gets the win in the All-Star race. Locks himself in for, I don't know, what is it, 2 years right now? But who knows how it'll change down the road.
Be next year, right?
Yeah. So either way, Larson's locked in at least to next year, probably with the win, and gets himself an All-Star race victory. And what I thought was a pretty darn exciting All-Star race, to be honest.
Yeah, he got the monkey off his back a little bit, and it was some good racing.
Yep.
Really, really good, entertaining racing.
It was, let's put it this way. I was really skeptical. We talked last week, and when this package was announced, that, okay, we're doing this bigger splitter thing, and we don't want them to have the splitter, blah, blah, blah. This package, if this is what we've got to look forward to with Gen 7, I'm down. I mean, I think it was great. It seemed to it got to the point where, it was what they were looking for. And we got the pack racing and all that stuff. And a lot of that had to do with the All-Star race and the short runs. That was exciting and that was great, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when somebody was faster than a leader, they could pass them. And that's what we want. That is the whole thing that we want with these packages. And this package seemed to do that. So
yeah, the All-Star race is definitely a hard race to judge. The Open's really hard to judge because you're taking, you're getting fast cars with inexperienced drivers in the Open, and then you're taking the fastest guy away. So you get the Open's always exciting, no matter what.
Right.
It seems to be, but
even when the All-Star race was boring, the Open was good.
Yeah, the Opens out has really good history of being really good racing. But yeah, I was encouraged by what we saw. I
Yeah.
think that was we'll get into it a little bit here in a minute. But the splitters seemed to be the difference. The drivers didn't seem to really say much about the nostrils coming out of the hood. But
Right.
yeah, Kyle Busch, I think, was pretty much the most adamant person saying, yeah, the splitter is working. It's he could definitely notice the difference.
Well, let's say I pulled a clip from Radioactive this weekend to show just how happy Kyle Busch was with the package this week. And here's Kyle. So Kyle was excited about the package. He thought it was,
but he liked it really good.
Practice. He's a big fan, so he would like to run it this week at Charlotte. So
he is intense, man. When he's mad, I mean, wow.
Well, but what he didn't do is try to beat up Ryan Newman.
Oh my God. This is where I'm gonna get mad in this podcast.
So Clint Bowyer decided to, well, okay. So I think a lot of this came from a misunderstanding. And I think that's one thing that I did gather from this. Clint is fired up, man. We've played his clip during the intro several weeks this season. He's been on fire, all frustrated, all irritated. And this week it finally boiled over because he thought that Ryan Newman was a lap down on the last run. And Newman was racing him like Newman does. It's the All-Star race. It's a race, Clint. You're supposed to try and keep people behind you. And that's what Ryan was doing. And Clint didn't like it. And they got into each other after the checkered. And Clint comes running over and just, I mean,
whatever the heck that was, slap fight.
Yeah, it pretty much looked like a slap fight. I noticed it kind of looked like there might have been a couple bruises on Ryan when he was drinking the Coke during the TV interview afterwards, but they hadn't quite shown through yet. And I don't know. I think Clint decided to go for quantity over quality. Just, I mean, I don't know how many punches he landed. I mean, I don't know if they be called punches. Yeah.
Yeah. It was not a scorecard. I give it to Ryan Newman as the winner of that fight, even if he didn't even get a punch in, because I don't want to step on the soundbite, but come on, Clint. I mean, let the man get out of his car, take your helmet off, and throw down. What are you doing?
Let's get to the clip. So Tony Stewart today, we'll get to the Hall of Fame stuff in a minute, but Tony Stewart was interviewed at the Hall of Fame today, and I believe it was Bob Pockrass. I know Bob Pockrass posted the video and the audio. He asked him about Clint and the race, and the first thing Tony says, which is cut off in the clip, I'm going to try and do this. I'm doing this straight from Twitter, not from my soundboard, so we'll see how it actually works. But the first thing Tony says is that he told Clint that he needs to take his helmet off, and here's the rest of what Tony had to say.
These kids leave their helmets on to fight. Men take their helmets off and they fight. If you're going to fight, fight. So it was funny because
all right, we'll leave it at that. So,
well, Tony Stewart likes to take his helmet off and throw it.
Yeah,
at card. Exactly. So yes.
I mean, I have noticed that a lot of these guys are keeping their helmets on when they get in these pushing matches. And I'll tell you what, Jeff Gordon's no better. I've seen Jeff Gordon in a pushing match with his helmet on before.
Yeah, Jeff Gordon, well, he's an infamous slap fighter. And, if you're going to fight somebody, listen, it's better to walk away than to look like a complete wuss. But when you're going up against Ryan Newman, you better bring it, and you better bring it hard.
Yeah. I mean, that's what Clint was doing, and he didn't have a chance against Newman unless he was belted in his car.
Nobody has a chance against Newman in the series, man. He's low. He's low to the ground. He's got no neck. He looks like a human bulldozer. And that's why he was so great with that Caterpillar sponsorship for so long. I'm like, that's perfect. He looks like his sponsor. He's a bulldozer.
The only thing that looked sillier than this was Spencer Gallagher trying to
the John West Townley thing.
Yeah.
That whole when they tumbled down the track hugging each other.
Yeah, are you recording in the middle of the road, James?
I'm not.
Was that you or is that on my end?
No, I don't think it was on my end, man. I'm just sitting here.
Must be on my end then. I don't know.
Maybe we're talking about bulldozers. I don't know. Maybe there's one coming through.
Anyway, never know what you're gonna get on the podcast. Yeah, so that was pretty silly, pretty much. But hey, anytime punches are thrown in the All-Star race, that's a good day.
Yeah, heck of a day.
Let's see what else we want to talk about with the All-Star race. I think the big win on the weekend is whoever decided to put the AstroTurf in the front stretch at Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Yeah, that's good.
We saw Newman slide through it. We saw William Byron take to it during the Open. We did not see any front ends get ripped off of cars. I'm sure whoever foot the bill for it was probably getting ready to ask Kyle Larson for a check after the race when Larson did his donuts in it. I was cringing as it was happening. But
well, if you're going to put turf down, you're going to have to expect that it's going to get ripped up twice a year. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, exactly. But that is awesome. I think we need this right now. That was the test. We've been waiting for somebody to slide through it. They finally did. Let's put that in everywhere.
Well, Larry Mack was on Fox Sports saying that, yeah, this is something we need all the tracks. It's a safety thing. So this is perfect. We have cars getting dug up and flipping over, and yeah, I agree. And they had it in for the Roval last year. We didn't see much of it,
right?
But yeah, it really came into play when the cars are coming a lot faster off of turn 4.
Yeah.
And especially when these guys are trying to go 4 wide.
Right. 4 wide through the dogleg at Charlotte, man.
It's incredible what they were doing with some of the moves they were making out there. But
so
yeah, it's a great thing to have.
One thing I'll say that really shines through in the All-Star race. The All-Star race is a great race because it used to be we had all these things that we didn't see in any other time. We had the double file restarts. We didn't see that anywhere else. Well, now we see the double file restarts. We had the stages. Okay, that's awesome. We raced to a stage. Well, there's no reason to race to the stage in the All-Star race. Who cares where you finish in stage 1?
Right.
That was the big loss the last 2 years for me, and I forgot about it last year. But this year it was like just glaring. It's like, okay, we're racing to the stage win, but who cares? Like, there's nothing. Right. At least in the Open, there was a reason to race for the stage wins.
Right.
So that really shone through. Like, I don't really see the point in these stages. I think you can split it into 2 stages and be done with it. There's no reason to race to the other stages unless you put some money up on them.
Well, you remember there used to be like they would re-rack the field.
Yeah,
after
that was
stage,
stupid though.
And then you would have to make mandatory pit stops in between stages.
That was stupid though because Chad Canales and Jimmy Johnson always figured out a way to screw it up.
Yeah, they really did they screwed everything up. Remember they pitted their pit boxes right before the start finish line one year.
Yeah.
And you had to pit under green, and he basically came down on lap 10 of 10 and pitted and took off.
Yep.
I think he won the stage that way. So yeah, it's. I don't know. I mean, the racing was exciting. I almost wish we didn't have so many cautions to see really what it could do on longer runs. But, I mean, good. It was good overall. I mean, it was really the last 2 All-Star races. I know I banged on the All-Star race last year, but, yeah, for what it's worth, the racing, as far as what's on the track, has been really good.
Best 2 since the 90s.
Yeah, it's been the best 2 for a long time. It was really bad there for a long time. But
mid 2000s, late 2000s, terrible.
Yes, the one where Stewart won, what was that? 2008? No, that would have been 2009. Stewart won in 2009, and that was when everybody was like, "Wait a second, we need to have double file restarts." That was the last one because the restarts were so great in that All-Star race.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't remember any other ones really sticking out after that. So it's good to have, man. If you're gonna have this prestigious event as an All-Star race, it should be good. And that's good.
This race and this package that we saw at this race, which again, we were told by NASCAR that this is a preview of the Gen 7 or of some of the things they're looking at for the Gen 7. Nowhere does it say this is what we're going to see in the Gen 7. We don't know how much of this is going to be used in the Gen 7. We know very little about it. Yeah. But this combined with what we've seen as people have gotten used to the current package gives us a lot of promise going forward. It looks like NASCAR is in the right direction on the aero package. The only thing that I want to see is, again, we need to get something when these cars get sideways, they're not as easy to save because we saw some big saves again. And a lot of that, don't get me wrong, these guys have a ton of skill, but a lot of that is the air saving the car too.
Yeah.
And who knows, composite bodies, things like that may change things up. I know the composite bodies, when we get those in Cup, is going to get rid of the slap the wall and cut down a tire thing that we saw a lot on Saturday night. Mm-hmm. That'll go away with the composite bodies. But who knows? I mean, if it's taking the side skirts off of them or something, anything just to get a little bit of that side force away. That's the last thing we need. I'm no longer on the anti-splitter bandwagon because the splitter they have with this package with the lip in the middle, it seems to do what it needs to do. It lets the air get under the car and get out from under the car, and it gets rid of the problems. And there was, I don't remember who it was, but somebody talked last week about, we want to get rid of the splitter, but because these teams know so much about the underside of the car and everything, and because of the way they work that now, it might not be possible to get rid of the splitter anymore. It just might not work with the current, what everybody knows. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things you just can't go back once you know the stuff.
Yeah, the technology's maybe too far advanced, and if we have to have a splitter, we might as well figure out which one that works.
Yep.
You know, I'm still anti-splitter, but I mean, you know, it's like show me, and
Right.
if this is the best example, yeah, okay, right direction. Let's move it forward. I'd like to see the splitter. If this thing really had that much effect, I'd like to see it a few more times this year. Run it at Michigan. Run it. We got a lot of 1.5 miles coming up, and we can run them. So let's see it.
Right. I agree. One thing I found interesting is this package is supposed to help with engine cooling, but it didn't seem to help when they were under caution. There were a lot of cars shutting off under caution because the engines were getting too hot. And again, this is the one time we've ever seen this package before. It wasn't really tested before this. So, they'll learn that stuff, and that stuff will get worked out too. But
absolutely,
this isn't something, I don't think there's any indication that, like the All-Star package last year, that we're going to see this slapped on the cars next year. It's a couple years off, and some variation of this with a lot of other stuff, I'm sure. So
for sure.
Who else needs to get some mention in this All-Star race? I took out the winners and losers because there's only so many cars. There's not a whole lot
we
of
don't really
losers in
have
it.
winners. Exactly.
I mean, if you want to give us a loser, we'd maybe say Eric Jones, who bounced off about everything Saturday night.
Yeah, winner was Kevin Harvick in the Millennial AF car.
Yeah.
He ran pretty darn good.
I got a little something for Mr. Harvick. So here's the thing. I am getting sick and tired of Kevin Harvick getting out of his car and ripping on his pit crew. He's
been doing that for years.
I know he has, but here's the thing. If one of those pit crew members got on camera and said that Kevin Harvick screwed them out of a race, which Kevin Harvick has done, he'd be gone. And that's what bothers me about it is Harvick, it's really easy to point the finger at those guys and say, we would have won if it wasn't for them, but they can have, 20 good pit stops, and that one is the one that he wants to focus on. And I get it. Harvick is Harvick. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we need to censor these drivers and Kevin, but the guy needs to have lay off him a little bit.
Yes. Right. Yeah, I know.
I like the personality, but come on, man.
Yeah, it's one of his annoying traits. He rips the pit crew quite a bit. He's done that since he's been with Stuart Haas. He's really, ever since 2014, he's been on there. And he's had reason, though.
Yes.
There are times where he's had reasons to really get on those guys. But
and they weren't the best pit crew at the All-Star race, period.
It's an All-Star race. Settle down.
Yeah,
Settle down, Kevin. I think I'd like to count myself as a winner because I almost had every driver from the Open make it to the All-Star race.
Nice.
I was one Ricky Stenhouse short. You did really well too, though. You had Byron and Bowman, but for some reason you picked Paul Menard, and that didn't work out for you.
Yeah,
and then Matt Bandel lost the fan vote, which is kind of surprising that Bowman.
I was pretty surprised that Bowman got in on the fan vote.
Yeah, well, and I thought Bubba was going to have it for sure, and then Bubba went out and won the dang second stage. So
yeah,
good showing for him. But yeah, as far as the All-Star race, I that's a lot of guys bouncing off the wall, man. There's a lot of contact out there, but.
Denny Hamlin had the tire go down and got punted late in the race.
Yeah.
Ryan Blaney wasn't really there. Kurt Busch, not a whole lot.
Didn't really hear much from Johnson.
Nope. Jimmy wasn't much of a factor. Dylan, those RCR cars, they like this package.
Yeah, they run really well.
Yep. So that's
Bubba Wallace. Get a top 5.
Yeah.
Come on, that's not something to snuff at. And we've had some speculation about him, and he's. Man, that's awesome.
Which, by the way, we have no speculation about Bubba Wallace this week, but every one of the speculation has been denied.
Yeah, denied. Yes.
Yeah. So
we'll
we didn't
see.
talk about the Honda rumor on the podcast because that came out after our podcast last week, but that's been denied. So who knows? Who knows? There's been rumors about Petty shutting down. We've had this story on the podcast about Petty shutting down before, and it hasn't.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But okay, let's talk about the Open then. I think the Open arguably has been the best race of the All-Star weekend for quite a while, and I don't think this was any different. I like the fact that we raced to the stages, and in every stage, I'm not a fan of you only have to run part of the race to get in, but it sure makes the stages exciting, and so I'm good with that. And so William Byron gets the first. Every stage was exciting. William Byron gets the first stage win, sneaking one past Bubba. Bubba had the sucker.
Yeah, he did. He had the first stage locked up.
Byron came off the corner and pretty much drove through him and got the stage win and got into the race. And it's like, man, Bubba had his chance. Now he's not going to make it. And then
Yeah.
Bubba fights back in the second one and holds off Suarez. Suarez spins through the grass, and Bubba gets in on stage 2.
Yeah.
And
Which
then,
was awesome.
of course, Larson battles it out and gets the win to finish it off and get in the All-Star race. We talked about Bowman getting the fan vote, but this race was the indication that we were going to in for a good night because it was spectacular.
Yeah, really good racing from all the guys out there who, given that they're all, guys like Suarez, great opportunity for him to get into the All-Star race, and he was giving it everything he had. And Bubba, was just in the hunt from the start. Stage 1, he misses it by 6 inches?
Yep.
And then stage 2, he just took it, and that just goes to show you the driving talent that kid does. He's got it in him.
Mm-hmm.
If you can just have a car that performs for him once in a while, it'd be really worth it for him. So,
yep.
Just a good, great overall. I feel bad for Ty Dillon. He was close. Didn't get in. Didn't get the fan vote.
Daniel Hemrick leads 25 laps. He looked like a contender and ends up with an 18th place finish after a wreck.
Crashed out.
Alex Bowman, he was coming at the end. He led 23 laps of the race. He was on his way at the end and close to sneaking in and just didn't have enough time to get up there.
Yeah, the Chevrolets were fast again, with Byron winning stage 1 too. Good Chevrolet power again. And shoot. It's good stuff. Good stuff for the Chevrolets.
Ricky Stenhouse Jr. shows that it's possible to go from the top lane to the bottom lane in about 3 feet. By whipping back and forth across the track multiple times.
Right.
If there was a lane changing award, it went to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in that race.
Yeah, he had Ricky Spinhouse going on. So.
Still got 5th place.
Yeah.
Beat up car, but 5th place.
Yeah, I know. That's something else.
So it was a good one. I think all around good weekend at Charlotte. I look forward to what we're going to see in the future. And unlike last year, where I was kind of bummed we were going back to the old package going into the 600, we still have the new package at 600 this weekend. So, we've got the sticky stuff going down again and all that. And, who knows? I think we should still have a pretty good 600. So looking forward to it this weekend.
Yeah, going to be a great weekend of racing all the way around. But
Can't
the 600, I think, should be good.
My Sunday is planned out. It is official. I'm sitting in front of the television. So.
Yeah, you posted on Facebook, don't bother me.
Yep. That was before I cleared it with the wife, but I think I'm good.
Well, we all have to clear it through the boss, and that's just par for the course.
Exactly. All right, so slow news day today. Not much going on in the world of NASCAR. Let's kick it off with the big story of the week. We got our 2020 Hall of Fame class announced earlier today, just a few hours ago. And James, who made it into the Hall of Fame this year?
Waddell Wilson, baby, he did it. He did make it. Waddell did make it. But for me, as a Tony Stewart fan, huge day. Just fantastic. He makes it in as a first ballot Hall of Famer.
I almost wanted him not to make it in just because this podcast would have been so much more entertaining.
This podcast up.
We wouldn't have been able to even have a happy conversation.
No, I'm disappointed.
You probably would have canceled the podcast.
I would have been pretty mad. I'm not gonna lie to you. Would have been really mad. I'm still kind of disappointed he didn't get above 90%. And
yeah, James tells me before the announcement today that if he doesn't get 90%, he's gonna be mad. 88%.
Pretty close.
That's close.
No, I don't want to be too mad though, because it's just awesome to see him making it. There'll be a handful of first ballot Hall of Famers that make the NASCAR Hall of Fame.
Right.
The really great ones are the first ballot guys, and it's just I don't know, it's cool because he's part of that exclusive club, the best of the best, the best of the Hall of Fame class that gets in first ballot. He's there with Jeff Gordon. And
how mad are you going to be, James, when Dale Earnhardt Jr. gets 100%?
Oh, he better not.
You're going to be mad.
He makes it in on the first ballot, I will come on this podcast and I will be upset.
Really? Honestly, you're going to be mad about a first ballot for Dale Jr.?
Yeah, Dale Jr. should not be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
He's a Hall of Famer, but he's
going to be first ballot, guaranteed.
I know. Oh, I know. He'll get his popularity vote. And that's what it is from Dale Jr. It's been his whole career. He gets the popularity vote, and that's what it is.
It's the Hall of Fame, man. Who's more famous in NASCAR than Dale Jr.?
Hall of Fame, not a Hall of very good or good.
Fame, not Hall of Skills, not Hall of Stats, Hall of Fame. All right, let's go
We
through.
should mention the rest of the
Yeah,
class,
let's go through the
too.
class. So we got Tony. First of all,
You're
it was
just trying to fire me up is all you're trying to do.
I am very much so, and I will when
That was a
Junior gets
good
in.
pull. That was a good pull from you out of your back pocket. I won't be upset if Dale Jr. gets in.
I
but
told you I had one, didn't I?
first ballot will make me a little bit miffed.
I
I'm still mad. I'm still mad Jeff Gordon didn't get 100% of the vote.
Yeah, I agree with you.
That really ticks me
I
off.
told you before the podcast though I had something in my pocket.
You did. You've always got a bag of tricks.
There you go.
I'm okay with that.
So it was a real good day for Joe Gibbs. Joe Gibbs gets into the Hall of Fame. His former driver Tony Stewart gets into the Hall of Fame, as does his former driver Bobby Labonte. Tony Stewart got 88% of the votes, as James mentioned. Joe Gibbs gets 72%. Waddell Wilson 72%. Buddy Baker 70%. Buddy Baker makes it in. Bobby Labonte got 67%. And I'll be clear, that's not percentage per each person, because obviously I know how percentages work. That is percentage of votes that they got per person.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think there's anything to complain about in this class. Obviously, the votes were pretty decisive. Everybody was almost 70% and above.
Well, this is definitely the Joe Gibbs class.
Yeah, definitely.
Joe Gibbs class, because he's, they're going in 2020, the owner of the 20 car.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, and Tony Stewart, the driver of the 20 car for so many years, 2 championships there, and then Bobby Labonte, Joe Gibbs' first champion.
So I have a question for you.
That's a good pull for him.
On Tony Stewart, do you see what car when you picture Tony Stewart? What car do you see? Do you see him in the 14? Or do you see him in the 20?
For me, well, see, I was a fan his whole career. It's really the first guy I was start to finish a fan of who ended up retiring.
Yeah.
I think it's the 20 car for me. It's really hard though, because what he did in the 14 when he won that championship,
right?
Really, I mean, that was something. For me, that's the moment that, like, if you asked me what my Tony Stewart moment was, it's not the first 2 championships. It's that third one.
Right.
He won that championship. That was just it was an emotional year for me as a fan, but as I was going through a lot of stuff personally that year, with the passing of my grandfather not too far before that whole thing. And I just remember vividly that day more than any other one. But I still think, as far as his career is concerned, I think he did most of his damage in the 20 cars, especially he's got the 2 championships, and he was definitely much more of a force in that 20 car than he was in that 14.
Right. It's interesting because you have these guys. I mean, you got someone like Jeff Gordon, who obviously you're always going to picture him in the 1 car. He drove the 1 car his whole career.
Dale Jr. is going to be the same type of thing. I think most people think of him in the 8 car still.
Yeah, I see him in the 88 to me for Junior. Mark Martin, for example, for me he's the 6 car. I mean,
he's always the 6.
Yeah, the 6 Valvoline. And I'm even before the Viagra days.
Yeah,
the Valvoline number 6 is Martin to me.
Pfizer days.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting to see. I think I see Tony in the 20 car too. That's where I see Tony as I see him in that Joe Gibbs car. That was where he really made his mark in his career, and I think he earned his first ballot Hall of Fame status with what he did in the 14 car. I think without the 14 car, he's not necessarily, and probably not a first round Hall of Famer.
He's closer. He probably would have still been a first ballot Hall of Famer with what he did in the 20.
If you look at who he's up against right now, yeah, probably.
Yeah, but he was able to achieve that 3rd championship, and that's the number. Right. I mean, there's some guys. I mean, we're in an era of NASCAR right now where we have a bunch of guys who have one championship. Not a lot of guys get to 2, and very few get to 3.
Right.
And I think I've said on this podcast before, I think one of Tony Stewart's great achievements is he was able to capture his title, two of his titles in the Jimmy Johnson era.
Yeah.
He bookended the 5-peat out of Johnson, and to go up against a Mount Rushmore guy like Johnson and still be able to get multiple championships, I think is a testament to his greatness in the car.
Right.
But the rest of the classes, I mean, that's a great class though. Joe Gibbs,
we kind of expected when he didn't get in last year that he was right here.
We need an owner. Yep, we need an owner in there, and he's going to be a great ambassador for the Hall of Fame himself. I mean, that's the 2 great guys who can carry the banner for the 2020 class.
Right. Waddell Wilson, not a surprise. Surprise at all. That's a good pick. Bobby Labonte, we've had the talk on here plenty that he would be in eventually, probably sooner than later. That was a good one. And Buddy Baker, I don't think is a surprise for anybody either. between what he did in the car and outside of the car.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, is he in based on his in the car feats or what he did outside?
I think out of the car. I think outside of the car.
I think that's a bigger pull for him outside of the car. He only won 19 times in the Cup Series, never won a championship.
Without the TV career, I don't know that Buddy gets in.
I think he's in. Yeah, I think he's in more as a broadcaster than he was as a driver. Which not to take away from his driving.
No, because if he just had the broadcasting stuff too, I don't think he's in. Yeah. But because he went driver to broadcaster, he is one of the first to do it. That I think that a lot of that has to do with why he's there. So
he only had his entire career. He raced for 35 years. Over the span of 35 years, he raced 2 full-time seasons. That's it. That's it. That's that's crazy. But he was, he was top 5 in points only once, but had a couple nice runs there. But yeah, he was racing in a different era. David Pearson's the same thing. They raced for trophies, not points.
So give me your 2 that are left out, and if you don't have them in front of you, they're in the show notes down at the bottom in the whole NASCAR press release part. Give me your 2 who you think are maybe not should have been in. If there is anybody that you think should have been in over these guys, if not, who's your next 2 out of this group?
Man, I don't know. There's a lot of talk about Mike Stefanik.
Yeah.
For some reason this week, I saw that. Man, I don't know. Drivers. I'm trying to think of drivers. Carl Edwards wasn't even on the ballot.
Yeah.
And I think he should be on the ballot. I don't think he gets in for a while.
I agree with that.
But if I had to pick 2 to get in, I think Harry Gant should be in. At some point.
No, Harry to me is one that I could, and I don't remember what I said last time we talked about it, but I could see Harry not getting in.
Yeah.
I think Ricky Rudd gets in before Harry.
Yeah. Man, it's tough.
Neil Bonnet's the one to me that I think is a sooner than later.
Yeah, he should get into.
Neil is broadcasting career mixed with racing, kind of like Buddy Baker. Yeah. And I think Neil Bonnet to get in the same year as Buddy Baker, there's no way that would. I think there's it's a similar reason for getting in, but I think Neil Bonnet gets in the next couple of years.
I have a hard time with what to do with guys like Stefanik. And Ray Fox, I have a hard time with where, when, and where to put those guys in.
Well, it's not the Cup Series Hall of Fame. It is the NASCAR Hall of Fame.
I know, absolutely.
So I think we almost need one of these guys every year to get in.
Yeah, we need one. It's almost like an honorary spot outside of the Cup Series. It's hard for me to say, but if I picked 2 guys, for me it would have to be Bonnet and Gant, who were left off.
See, I think Bonnet and Rudd.
Yeah, Rudd's.
Even though I do agree that Stefanik should be pretty high up there. Harry Hyde's another one.
Yeah,
there's nobody on this list that's a bad choice.
No, they're all going to be and that's the thing. They're all going to be Hall of Famers. It's hard,
especially if we keep putting in 5 a year.
Yeah, well, and the next version of this ballot, Dale Jr. is going to be on it.
Yeah.
So, that's the thing. Like he'll probably get in.
Yep, he's going to get in.
Yeah, he'll get in.
I don't think there's much probably. I think here's the thing, and I get your standpoint, and I don't know that I necessarily agree with this, but if Dale Jr. doesn't get in on the first ballot in the Hall of Fame, there is a problem with the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Honestly, he should. There's no reason that Dale Jr. shouldn't be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
And listeners of this podcast, if you're a Dale Jr. fan, I'm sorry. I like Dale Jr. now.
I'm not saying that you have to agree with it, but just based on what we've seen out of the Hall of Fame and Junior's popularity in the sport and what he's done with the sport, wouldn't you be? I don't want to say let down, but wouldn't you kind of just question the validity of it if he didn't get in the first round?
Well, and that's the thing is the NASCAR Hall of Fame always picks a guy who's recently retired within 5 years.
Who on this group could beat Dale Jr. that we have right now that didn't make it?
That didn't make it? No, nobody.
Exactly. Nobody beats him in. So, so we throw Carl Edwards on here next year, or we throw somebody like Greg Biffle on here next year.
And Dale Jr.'s resume is far better than Carl Edwards. Sorry, Carl.
Who else are we going to add to this list that would beat Dale Jr.? Who's eligible that would beat Dale Jr.? Nobody.
There's nobody who's going to.
So he gets in first round.
Yeah,
guaranteed.
Probably. Yep. No, I mean that's fair.
Right.
That's a fair point because you're right. As far as accomplishments, I mean, 2 Daytona 500s and most popular driver for many years. Yeah,
Yep.
he's in.
Yep. Gotta be. All right. Anything else on the Hall of Fame? I think that covers it.
That's awesome.
I got you
told
riled
I
up a
need
little
to get
bit.
credentials, for the ceremony. So we'll
There you go.
see if we can make that happen.
Yeah, I'll hook you up, man. If you want it, we'll do it. We'll get it done. NASCAR going to merge with International Speedway Corporation. We got some hints of that before. I didn't fully read the story, I'll be honest, but it appears as if the merger is going to occur.
Yeah, it's happening. And a lot of talk is once this happens, the next version of the NASCAR Cup Series schedule is going to look a lot different because NASCAR will be in control and can move dates when and where they want without affecting their shareholders.
Couple other slightly interesting things. Bob Pockrass tweets out that Brian France will be bought out of his shares. He's going to be basically swept off.
He is, yeah, he's in exile.
Another thing, NASCAR would own MRN as a result of this. That's
I love
interesting.
that.
So
I do love that.
Yeah. I think that's really the big takeaways that I've seen on it.
If NASCAR owns MRN, what happens to PRN?
PRN is still owned by SMI, according to Pockrass.
Okay.
So they will still be there until NASCAR tries to make a play at SMI, which who knows?
Yes.
That would be the next piece of this puzzle, and we'll see if that would ever happen, but I guarantee you NASCAR is going to try it.
What tracks are SMI again?
SMI are your motor speedways. So your Texas Motor Speedway, New Hampshire Motor Speedway, Charlotte, Bristol.
The Bruton Smith tracks.
Yep, soon to be Nashville, those tracks. Yep, all Bruton
and
Smith
basically
tracks.
the France family owned ISC anyway.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Now NASCAR owns ISC.
Yep, they were separately traded companies, so essentially the ISC group could argue that NASCAR didn't have full control. NASCAR couldn't make all the moves that it wanted to with ISC. In the past, there was a good reason to keep these two entities separate because it kept the whole monopoly thing from looking, but now it's looking like it's better for them to have ownership of it, to be able to move stuff around. So
if I'm an ISC track like our favorite Michigan, our local track, I'm a little bit worried that we're going to lose a date here.
Yeah, I
never been more realistic.
The only thing that Michigan has going for it to me that may work for it is that it's in Detroit, but I think all that gets us is a doubleheader weekend.
Yeah, probably, which I'm fine with.
Right, me too.
I'd love to see that.
Me too.
I'm Pocono thing next year and see how it works.
I'll be honest. I mean, and obviously it would. I don't take this from an economic standpoint because I realize that MIS it's in the Irish Hills of Brooklyn. It's in the middle of nowhere, essentially. The population in this area just more than quadruples. It just blows up on race weekend. That brings a lot of money into the town of Brooklyn and Jackson and Ann Arbor and all these areas around it. So don't look at me as dissing that when I say this, but when I was going as a fan, I went to both races for 2 or 3 years. Generally, we went to one or the other. So all it's going to do really is help the attendance of the one race by getting rid of another one. I don't really have an issue with them getting rid of one of them. No. And it's not like Michigan is putting up these, barn burner races that, oh my God, we can't, it's not Talladega. We can afford to lose one. I mean, it was suck, don't get me wrong, but
I think Iowa Speedway comes out really nicely in this whole thing too.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a little bit of a possibility to move them into the Cup Series.
I would be very, very surprised if when we get the new schedule for 2020, 2021, if by 2021 we don't have Iowa and Gateway and potentially Nashville on the schedule. Yeah. And Nashville, I don't know about Cup.
Top 3 series,
but
for sure.
Gateway and Iowa will have a Cup date. Mark my words, within the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, they're gonna start taking dates away, and it's gonna be interesting. But no, I mean, this is huge. This is a big deal. It means a lot. You have to dive in a little bit, and we're not going to see the repercussions of this for a while yet. But this is the first domino to fall for some big changes that are coming.
Definitely. Some more big news in the world of NASCAR today. Of course, not in NASCAR itself, but as how people get their coverage of it.
NASCAR media?
Yeah, NASCAR media. Jeff Gluck gave a teaser on his Patreon earlier this week that he was basically going to be quitting, as he calls his patrons,
Put in
his
his 2
bosses.
weeks.
Yeah, he put in his 2 weeks. Well, he couldn't put in his 2 weeks. He said usually they ask you to put in 2 weeks, but he wasn't able to do that. And this morning announced at 9 a.m. that he himself, Jordan Bianchi as well, who Jeff didn't announce this, but Jordan did, David Smith are going to The Athletic, which is, if you're not aware, subscription-only sports news website, app, etc. Previously has not had motorsports coverage, but they've done a spectacular job, in my opinion. Of my knowledge of it is them covering the NFL, the NHL,
NBA.
and the Major League Baseball, NBA. What sport is that again?
That's hoops.
Nobody watches that.
Nobody watches
anyway, so I mean, they're getting 3 good names on this deal, and so I'm excited for Jeff.
Man, this is a great roster of people, you guys. Like, these
great.
are some really good professionals.
And if you don't subscribe to The Athletic, I encourage you to. Just if you're a NASCAR fan, I guarantee you we're going to get good coverage out of these guys. But their other sports coverage has been great too. It's not real expensive. And as somebody who works in the journalism industry, everybody wants our stuff for free. But we need to make money to be able to feed our families and all that. And I'm not talking about from the podcast standpoint, because we do this for free. My actual job is at a newspaper, and people want us to give everything away for free on the web. And it's like, well, that stuff that's on the web, somebody worked to do that, and they shouldn't be giving it away for free. Which is why I've supported Jeff on Patreon. I've supported other people on Patreon, and I'm excited that he's getting this opportunity. And it's great. So if you really like the coverage you're getting somewhere, and regular news, anything, your TV networks, you're not going to be able to subscribe to those, but subscribe to your newspaper. Subscribe if you like the New York Times. Subscribe to the New York Times. Whatever, any of these things, support them, because that will help you continue to get what you're looking for. Without that, these places go away. And The Athletic's been a great startup with sports coverage and in this subscription-only model.
Job.
And
they've done a great job.
There's a lot of stuff like Wall Street Journal. If you read the Wall Street Journal, you have to pay to read it, but there's plenty of ways to get around the paywall on Wall Street Journal. And I don't see a lot of people getting around the paywall on The Athletic.
What The Athletic has done in the journalism side is they've built this Netflix model for themselves, where they are just cranking out content that you care about. If you're a fan of the Detroit Red Wings, guess what? Athletic's got it.
Well, and it's not just like, you don't go to The Athletic to go, well, what was the recap from that game? You go for these in-depth features and the stuff that is what you're seeing Jeff Gluck do. When James and I were tossing around where he might possibly be going, and Jeff made a comment, I think on Twitter, that it was something that his patrons were going to like, but his non-patrons might not be real excited. And James, I'll give you credit for saying The Athletic, because when you said it, it's like, oh yeah, that's definitely it.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is a perfect fit for him. This is perfect for him.
Yeah, it's perfect for him. And I told you too via text that David Smith is a huge get for them, because that guy is super smart. And he just brings the stuff that he's doing with data and being able to back it up and show you like who's good on restarts, he puts data in front of you that you're not even thinking of, but really comes into play when you're trying to take a deeper look at NASCAR and statistics, and that's kind of the world we live in sports now, where analytics are such a huge part of that. And to roll in somebody like him, and then you've got Jordan Bianchi, who's, I mean, I've loved Jordan's work when he was working at SB Nation. I thought he was one of the best in the business.
Yep.
And he's been gone for too long, so it's great to have him back as well. Just a great roster that they put together, and kind of backed by Gluck, who brings the following with him. Yep. I mean, if you're a patron of Gluck and you just move over to The Athletic, guess what? You're getting the great stuff that Gluck gives you, the social media millennial side of things, but you're getting Bianchi, you're getting David Smith, you're getting all of that now for a less price. I mean, it's a no-brainer if you're a subscriber.
Yeah, not to mention that you get all the other different sports as well. So if you're a sports fan, it's great. And I'll tell you, one of the things for me, some of these sites and whatnot, they do these subscription things and then they have a crappy app, and it just pisses me off, and I don't want to use it if it's got a crappy app. The Athletics app's great. So all around good stuff. So good for them, good for the sport. I mean, here's what's become a very reputable sports outlet saying, no, we need some motorsports coverage too. And that's great for us.
That's
So,
great. Absolutely. As ESPN has pulled everything away, we get something like The Athletic coming back in and reinfusing some of that media presence, which is fantastic for us.
right. And if you're a patron of Glux and you listen to our podcast, just know that you're going to be saving some money with The Athletic. So if you want to pitch in a little bit our direction, go to
Oh,
go to patreon.com/thesuperspeedway and become a patron for us.
that's so great.
Or, tell you what, throw your money at someone like Aaron Bearden, who is freaking spectacular and doing a great job with his newsletter. There's a lot of great people out there that you can support on Patreon. So I'm just joking around. We'd love your support, but there's lots of people to support.
I had a thought that maybe Aaron was going to be part of this.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised he isn't, but he's just doing his own thing. That's cool. He's doing a great job.
Yep, definitely. So check him out as well. I forget what the actual.
He's signed up for his news. He's got a newsletter. Just look up Aaron Bearden. He's got a newsletter. It's really good. Everything he does is good. So there's lots of guys out there who do good stuff.
Yep.
He's one of them.
Friend of the show, all that. The thing with Aaron is, like, every time I think, like, I really need to push people to become a patron of us, it's like, I can't say, I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't do a lot with NASCAR, but I'll go work on the weekend and at these races a couple times a year, and I could look around and go, yeah, I'm working harder than that guy. Nobody works harder than Aaron Bearden, man.
Yeah,
this kid is just, and all the time, whether he's at the track or not, he is busting his butt. So he deserves the support.
It's going to pay off. It's going to continue to pay off for him. I have no doubt.
Yep. James, take on the next one, because you added this in here. I haven't read the article. So what do you got on Jimmy?
Really, all I wanted to do was call it out. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but we put the link in the show notes. Racer.com and another really hardworking journalist.
Kelly Crandall's awesome.
Kelly Crandall is doing a great job, and I just wanted to call out. She did an in-depth interview with Jimmy Johnson on his struggles, and he goes into depth on not having won a race in 716 days, which is kind of crazy when you think about Jimmy Johnson. But he looks at basically the journey. They go into a little bit of everything, and like I said, link is in the show notes if you're a Johnson fan, or if you're a Kelly Crandall fan.
Yep.
Go read it. It's just a really good piece. It doesn't take you too long to read, but it's interesting to see Jimmy Johnson be vulnerable about losing. That's maybe my biggest takeaway. He has been losing, and he usually doesn't talk about that stuff. So she got a really good piece out of him.
Kelly was on Sirius on Saturday morning, I think it was, and was talking a little bit about this article. So I was looking forward to seeing it. So I'm glad you shared it, and I'm going to read it when we're done with the podcast.
Yes, please do.
NASCAR made an announcement this week that they did some investigation into Kyle Larson's car that flipped at Talladega, and they have concluded that his car became airborne because of the damage it suffered in the impact prior to lifting off. And there are no plans to change the package. They said they don't see a reason to change it. We're going to see a very similar package when we go to Daytona in a few weeks here, and when we go back to Talladega in the fall. So unless something happens at Daytona and they decide to change it. But,
I don't know if I believe that. But
you don't know if you believe that they won't change it, or you don't know if you believe that's why it lifted.
The reason that it lifted was because of damage. No. I don't know.
I don't think so either. Because I think it looked really similar to Matt Kenseth going airborne. It looked really similar to Jamie McMurray going airborne. Instead of air getting lifted by the spoiler, now it seems like it's getting into that front wheel well, and the right front wheel well, and it's lifting them off. I've never seen cars go airborne going frontwards like they are now. So
these cars are always going to flip. I don't think there's anything we're going to be able to do.
No, the only way you're going to be able to do it is if we start running 150. And even then, I don't know, you can go to your local short track and see a car flip at 40.
Cars are always going to flip.
Exactly.
The bomber stocks at Tri-City flip.
I mean, the airborne stuff, we can go slower and keep them on the ground, keep them from lifting off, which I think the lifting off is the scarier part anyway, because you don't know where they're going to go when they do lift. But heck, look at Indy 500 qualifying in practice. We had cars getting airborne there too.
Fernando Alonso almost went up and over. So
when you go that fast, I mean, the IndyCar has done a good thing with their, whatever it's called, the plate on the bottom on the sides. They have that hole there now, which allows the car to come back down instead of continuing to fly. But I mean, you're going over. I mean, we saw Johnny Benson went airborne at Michigan at like 180 in a Busch car back in the day. You don't have to go that fast for air to get under these things and for them to lift.
It's like I always think of it as a bullet. These cars are bullets,
Yeah.
and when they fire out of the gun, they go straight really fast.
Yep.
But imagine if a bullet came out of a gun backwards, if that was possible,
Mm-hmm.
and think about where it would go. You wouldn't even know. It would be wobbling all over the place.
Right.
There's no way to know. So, and that's the same thing with these race cars. They are made to go one way really, really fast.
Think of a jumbo jet. How heavy is that? And we managed
Right.
to get those things off the ground just by moving the air around them. And when you've got a car, like you said, that's built to go one direction fast, and it's that aerodynamic, when you change its direction, there's going to be lift. If you've got all that downforce, and that's the problem, we've added downforce. When you turn the downforce around,
Yep.
it creates
Stuff happens.
lift.
Yep.
So,
Things happen.
yeah.
It's just the way it is.
So, but we'll still see him flip, especially at Talladega. But I don't mind seeing a flip. I don't mind seeing a good wreck. I don't want to see anybody get hurt. It does make me nervous when they go airborne by fences because the fences are an area we haven't hit enough that haven't learned quite the damage that they can do. But fences are scary, and they keep stuff in, which is their goal, but they cause a lot of damage too. And there's a lot of parts that can create major problems.
Yeah.
And every time we hit a fence, we're assuming that the fence is going to hold, and every time we hit one, we're testing the integrity and what is behind it. So that's scary. Don't like seeing that happen.
No, we don't want that ever. But I mean, the Austin Dillon thing happens, the Kyle Larson thing.
We've been very fortunate in NASCAR that they haven't gone through it. We've seen them go through it in IndyCar before, but fortunately not when there's
Michigan.
Yeah, well, that was over it. There was
that
one.
That was one of the big freak accidents where a tire got over the catch fence.
And every fence got built to go further out on over the track because of it.
Yeah.
But there was a car, I don't remember who it was. There's a lot of really interesting stories about like fatal accidents and things like that. There was a fatal accident at Indianapolis during testing once that there's like no video of, and there's very little details of it because it was kept really super hush hush. I don't remember the driver, but basically the thing went through the fence and disintegrated and everything. And it was, again, they hit these fences and you just don't know what's going to happen. And so, but again, that was during testing. Nobody was in the stands, fortunately. So it was only the driver. I mean, obviously it's still terrible. But you just never know when it happens. So the better, if we can keep them from getting in the fence, that's the biggest thing.
Yes, for sure.
With that, we go back to Charlotte Motor Speedway this weekend. It's the Coca-Cola 600 or the Coke 600 or whatever they're calling it this week. What are they calling it officially, James? Is it the Coke 600?
It's probably I think it's the Coke 600. I think that's what they're going with. But either way, Coca-Cola, Coke, New Coke, Coke Zero.
It is the Coca-Cola 600 according to NASCAR Media's website. There you go. So, way to go, James, in the show notes. See, if it's on the prompter, I read it.
Ron Burgundy.
There we go. I don't think we need to talk a whole lot about Charlotte because we already did. So, James, you get the first pick. Who you going with for the Coke 600?
Man, I forgot I had the first pick there for a second. Oh, man. Well, I'm going to go with the guy who hasn't won there before.
Okay.
But I like his numbers. Denny Hamlin.
That's a good one.
I like Toyotas. He's already got one crown jewel this season. Go get another one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. I am not going. I really want to go with the obvious and say Kyle Larson, but it's pretty rare to win the All-Star race and the Coke 600. They're two completely different races, two completely different packages. I am going to go with a past winner at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and based on what we've seen so far this season, and his performance in the All-Star race, even though it doesn't always translate over, and I'm going to go Austin Dillon as my winner.
Oh, I like that.
The Coke 600.
Won this race 2 years ago?
I believe that is correct.
Yeah, something like that.
And I get the first dark horse, and I'm going to do it just because I haven't done it in a little bit. And after his performance this past weekend, I want to do it now. And I'm going to say Bubba Wallace is my
nice
dark horse pick. How awesome would it be to see Bubba Wallace win the Coke 600?
Oh, that'd be sweet. Yeah, I mean, just to have him in contention, that would be sweet.
It would be awesome.
Man, yeah, that would be cool. For me, does Daniel Suarez count?
Yeah, he hasn't won.
Okay, I'll take him.
Yeah, okay.
He has the best average finish among active cup drivers.
Yeah, that is kind of. I can't believe I let you get away with that, but I'll go with it.
Yeah, he doesn't have a win in his career yet, so I think
Yeah.
I'm still yeah,
He's squeaking in there, but I'll give him to you.
sweet.
I mean,
Usually when I do a dark horse, I really reach, but I'm like,
Yeah.
Daniel Suarez is just sitting there, and he's got a 10th place average finish for his career at Charlotte. I am going to take him.
there's only so many dark horses that are a realistic potential win pick. Like,
Yeah, there's not many.
I love Bubba, but realistically,
No.
everything has to come together with the team and everything. In the
Yeah.
All-Star race, it's one thing. In the actual Coke 600 miles, lots of pit stops, green flag pit stops. It's probably not going to happen. But I'd like to see him do well. So
Yeah, I mean, you can pick any of these guys. Ty Dillon, you know, mine, but it's like, well, I mean, Daniel Suarez, he's in good equipment. He could possibly win this race. I don't know.
get him as a dark horse before he can anymore.
Maybe.
The day will come when I think when Daniel Suarez is no longer a dark horse pick.
Yeah, I agree. He'll be the Eric Almirola because I feel like we can't pick him anymore. So.
No, Eric's not a dark horse anymore.
No, he's a contender now.
Yep. And Daniel gets a win. Then it gets
Not a
really
contender.
questionable. He gets 2 wins and he's out. He's got
Daniel's not quite a contender yet.
Nope.
I think once you reach contender status, you're no longer allowed.
I agree with that. It's hard to tell. It's hard to say somebody's not a dark horse unless they're doing. I would have a hard time at this point picking Alex Bowman as a dark horse.
Yeah,
He's had
he's on a
so
roll.
many second place wins
He's
or
on a
second place
roll.
finishes. Yeah. It'd be hard to pick him as a dark horse, but you kind of got to do that. You got to have a
I have
lot
a
of
hard
top
time
fives.
I have a hard time picking William Byron sometimes because I'm like, well,
Yeah.
he's in Hendrick equipment. He's got Chickenhouse on the pit box.
But
Yeah,
he hasn't shown the consistency that Bowman has lately.
but he will. Yeah, but he will.
Yeah, he will.
Eventually.
He will too.
Yeah.
He's got to grow into it. The Bowman's Byron. Byron's going to be good.
Byron Bowman, one of them.
Yeah, one of them. All right, we don't have to talk about the fantasy league this week because we all did really well.
I didn't finish in last this week,
Yeah.
but yet I did.
Yeah, exactly. James, any shout outs this week?
Don't get mad. This is a quick one. So this week is my 5-year wedding anniversary. So I wanted to give a shout out to my wife for putting up with me for that long.
Nice.
I don't know how she does it, but she does.
I don't know how she does
So,
it either.
Yeah, so that's
And she puts up with me once a week too because she lets you come on here and do this.
yeah, I know. We've been doing this podcast for half of my marriage.
Wow.
I think almost something like that. Almost 2.5 years.
That's
Are we almost at 2.5 years in this podcast?
Yeah.
So anyway, if that's another feat, that's almost like
Wow.
we've been married 10 years.
That's
So,
crazy.
I don't know, I feel like when you hit these miles, I mean, there's years, there's anniversary years and whatnot.
Did
but when
you
hit
did you just shout your wife out on the podcast to earn you brownie points and then say it feels like you've been married for 10 years?
I feel like for her, it's been married.
Oh, okay, yeah.
for 10
Oh,
years.
good,
No,
good way to
that would-
dig out of that hole.
No. I don't know why she puts up with me.
Yeah.
That's the gist of the whole conversation. But
Yeah, I'm with
Right.
you. If you're gonna do the family shout out, I'm gonna do one too. My boys,
you had one too. I figured
my
you had
boys
one.
on Monday turned 7. So they've been on the podcast before. I think we had them on once, and then they did a Patreon only thing with me once too. So James hooked them up with some old.
That was
old-
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, race cars, 164 scale, some 124 scale cars, and they were super excited about it. And of
How
course,
did that go? By the way,
they
when
could
you
not
guys finally
wait to get
came
home and play with them. I didn't go through them. I let them have them. They're theirs.
Wow.
So we didn't. I don't think they opened any of the ones because you had some sealed ones. We haven't opened any
I
of
did.
those.
Yeah, I had some hot rod style cup cars from back in the day.
Yeah.
And there was a bunch of. I had put aside some like old Mark Martin ones and some Terry Labonte ones, but
Yeah, my wife was laughing at the number of Terry Labonte ones, and my mom came over
Yeah,
and she
it's
was
weird.
My mom was a big Mark Martin fan, and she noticed the number of Mark Martins in there.
Yeah, no, I have a bunch of those, and I can't explain. I wasn't like a fan of those guys, but they were just cars that I think everybody knew I liked NASCAR, and then they would get those, and
Yeah.
when I was a kid, so I just had a whole box of them. I told you they've been under my house for years, and I thought, man, the boys would get a kick out of these, so that was cool to see them. Cool to see them playing with those. I mean, they were super excited. I just made me happy that somebody, that generation. You feel like that generation. You worry that they don't like this stuff,
Right.
but yeah, they do. They really do like racing, and that's really cool to see that firsthand. So
Yeah, I'm trying to get them into it. The hockey thing is a little bit bigger for them right now.
well, that's okay. Good. You got to have other stuff too, but
They'll actually sit through a whole hockey game. They usually sit through about 20 laps of a race, and usually it's an excuse to not go to bed or something. So
Right.
Now Supercross, on the other hand, they'll sit through an entire Supercross, but the car race and stuff still a little
We'll
out
get
of.
there.
I mean, I when I was their age, I was going to Tri City and watching short track racing and watching 30-lap features at the longest.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I didn't sit through whole NASCAR races much
They've
at
got
that point
about
either.
3 more years, I think. Well,
Yeah.
maybe 2.
Well, they're
Yeah,
gonna get to go to a race this year again. The plan is, but I won't be in the stands with them, unfortunately, because I'll be working it. But I think they're going to do the Kentucky truck race, so they'll get one more experience at the
nice.
race. So
Nice. That'll be a lot of fun.
yeah, my wife and parents and kids are coming down to Kentucky we're doing some stuff before the race weekend. So when I go to the race, they're going to stick around and go to the truck race on Thursday night and then head home. So I told them, Kentucky's a great place. Trust me, you guys, if you haven't been to a race, Kentucky's an excellent place to go watch a race. And that truck race is spectacular and it's cheap to go. I mean, I think tickets are $35 or something for like the top of the tower type tickets. The expensive tickets are $35 and kids are free. I think they're 12 and under are free.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. MIS is doing a thing I'll point out too. I don't have the announcement right in front of me, but MIS is doing a thing this year where kids 12 and under, if you get a ticket to the Sunday race, they get pre-race pit and driver intro pass for free. That's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So check that deal out on MIS or mispeedway.com for that. And obviously we like MIS. They home track and they've hooked us up pretty good over the years. One more shout out I want to throw out here too, because it's on my Twitter feed right in front of me. Kelly Crandall, we already talked her up pretty good. Again, give her a follow if you haven't. She does some good stuff. She noted that during the Hall of Fame ceremony, it wasn't a surprise that Tony Stewart was named in the Hall of Fame, but it was fitting that Mike Helton, who couldn't help but laugh, was the one who opened the envelope calling Tony Stewart's name. So
that's awesome.
I'm pretty sure Mike Helton has called Tony Stewart's name a few times over his career.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Probably separated him from some other drivers a time or two as well.
Yes, I would imagine so. So this weekend it is. Let's do a real quick run through here, James. It is I gotta find my Facebook
World
post.
Series of Motorsports this weekend.
This is the greatest day in motorsports, as many like to call it, and I am one of those many. It is Sunday. There's no better place to be. So here's what we got. We have Formula One racing starting at 9 a.m. on ESPN. Once that wraps up, you got, half hour before the Indy 500 pre-race starts at 11 a.m. on NBC. The Indy 500 starts at noon on NBC. And then that leads you right into NASCAR race day on Fox Sports 1. And at 5:30 p.m., we get the pre-race on Fox. 6 p.m., Coca-Cola 600. Again, the best weekend of the year. If you don't watch Formula One, the Monaco Grand Prix is the one to watch. That race is excellent.
That's the one.
I tend to hit the DVR on it and start about an hour late, and that's kind of nice. But ESPN now does the Formula One races commercial free, so there's nothing to skip. You might as well watch it live.
Right.
In the Indy 500, I think it's going to be excellent.
How many miles did they end up going at Monaco? Do you know off the top of your head?
It's not really
I don't want to put you
far.
on the spot. Yeah.
I don't know off the top of my head, and
I'm watching 1,100 plus miles.
Yeah.
Of racing.
I think I'm more knowledgeable in Formula One currently than I've ever been in my life, because I've watched one full race this season, and I've watched parts of I think all of them so far, which is very unusual for me. Yeah. But I've been enjoying it. They've been putting on a good show.
Did you ever finish the Netflix documentary?
No, I still am like 2 episodes into it.
So good.
I got to do that. With Coke 600 officially 6 p.m. on Fox. The NASCAR Xfinity Series is also on the track this weekend on Saturday. Race is at 1 p.m. on Fox Sports 1. And Truck Series doesn't come back until June 7th at Texas Motor Speedway. But that's your race weekend. Going to be a good weekend of racing.
Yeah,
lots of miles on the track. And it's Memorial Day weekend, so there's all kinds of stuff going on. Lots of specials at your local short tracks as well. So go check those out as well.
Yeah. And we have a tease for next week.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I forgot to mention it. So James decided he's going to go on vacation. I don't know what this vacation crap is that he gets. I take vacation. I go work at the track.
Right.
You take vacation and are off the grid. So
I shut it down. It's I don't know.
So
I don't know
James
what- I
left
don't-
me totally scrambling without a co-host. He just ditched me completely.
Wow.
Okay, that's
how.
that's not
yeah.
true at all. James was gonna hook up with me, and we were gonna do something really early in the morning on really early, 9 o'clock in the morning on Memorial Day. But I found a fill-in. So one of our patrons and one of our competitors in the fantasy league, Todd.
I'm really excited about this.
Todd Henry will be on, and he'll take James's role next week, and I think we're gonna meet up and do an in-person podcast. So,
Oh, nice.
yeah, so
That's awesome.
Yep, so that should be fun. Todd will do a good job. He's a little nervous getting on the old
Well, at
podcast,
least-
but he'll be good once we get started.
Well, he'll bring a lot more knowledge than I can.
Yeah, he was
so-
all worried about not having to be prepared and stuff, and it's like you already are
Have
more
you heard
knowledgeable.
James talk? You could definitely talk circles around.
Not
it.
just
It'll be-
James. None of us. It's the preparation that
I
I do
will-
is jski.com. That's
I will be right, and I will be listening at some point during my vacation. I will download the podcast and I will listen to it, and I am excited.
nice. There we go.
I remember last year very fondly listening to when Aaron Bearden subbed in, and that's good.
Yeah, you were right on the Bearden and the Cone podcasts. I think you
Yeah, I
listened to
know.
them before I did.
I know.
All right, James, if they want to blow up your social media while you're on vacation and just drive you crazy, what's the best way to do that?
They can hit me on Twitter, James Cush on Twitter.
You can find me at TSuperspeedway on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/TheSuperspeedway. Our website is thesuperspeedway.com. You can find the podcasts on there, show notes, links to the articles we discussed and all that. Soon to be some coverage from this summer. There's some coverage from past races. I will be at Michigan International Speedway in a couple weeks to cover the Firekeepers Casino 400, hitting Chicagoland, Kentucky, and the other MIS race as well. So lots of stuff coming for you this week or this summer. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, and SoundCloud, wherever you found us today. We hope you subscribe and listen for more. We've enjoyed watching the numbers continue to climb a little bit, and we appreciate everybody who does listen and who has subscribed, and we hope you continue to stick around with us. And if you really like what you're hearing, and you've got some extra money now that Jeff Gluck is on The Athletic and you want to throw it our direction, you can become a patron at patreon.com/thesuperspeedway. Got some tiers on there, different things you can do to become a part of the show. Help us get to the track, help us, beef up the equipment and keep bringing you what we're bringing you. So with that, it is the greatest weekend in motorsports. We do all kinds of stuff this weekend. We will be back next week. Well, I will be. James will not be. We'll talk about the Indy 500. We'll talk about the Monaco Grand Prix, and most of all, we'll talk about the Coca-Cola 600. And if Todd does good enough, we'll kick James to the curb. He doesn't need to know that. Just don't tell him.
I mean, listen, I'm all for the team. Like, if Todd just completely takes over, I'll do what I have to do. I'll be relegated to the bench. It's okay.
James, man, you can't be replaced, and you don't have nothing to worry about. So you might
Okay,
replace
good.
me someday, but not the other way around. So.
I don't know about that, but okay. That sounds good.
All right, so it's the greatest weekend of motorsports. Everybody, let's go racing.